Hey everyone, welcome back. It's been a long time since I did a video like this, but I thought with the upcoming release of SPV3.3, it'd be good to give you guys a full start to finish recap of a level. The first big change is the reintroduction of skulls. We've got a number of skulls here, many of which have never been seen before in a Halo game. We designed these in order to be able to let players approach the game in totally different ways. Here I'm going to be playing with the Hdr Skull and the Odst Skull, which makes my shields weaker but allows them to charge faster. There's also skulls here like the Meat Bag, which gives you a classic health system kind of like Doom, where you need health packs to replenish your health, but you have a higher amount of health to start with. For this demo I'm going to play on Heroic. While we designed the game to be played on Legendary, for the sake of brevity I'm going to do it on Heroic here, especially since we have all these skull multipliers on. Contrary to popular belief, Noble is not Legendary. Noble is its own thing that replaced Easy difficulty. I've seen a lot of people get confused about this over the years, so hopefully this brings some clarification for those of you who have wondered. So right away, you can see the screen space reflections reflecting the yellow paint off the metal floor. This is probably the biggest graphical improvement we made in SPV 3.3, but another huge one is our updated Ambient Occlusion. For those of you who have seen Late Night Gaming's video or just aware in general, when Gearbox ported Halo to the PC, they left out a feature which was fully intentional despite what people say, that allowed there to be extra depth on the normal maps or the crevices that you would see on textured surfaces. Our new Ambient Occlusion method actually fixes that, and creates a similar effect to what was on the original Xbox. While it's more apparent in other environments, that is also in play here. We also have a new Dynamic Hdr System, which is sort of similar to what you see in Halo 3. Some of it still needs to be adjusted, especially in conjunction with our bloom. So if you see things that are blown out, don't worry, that's definitely on our to-do list of things to do. Another good example of the screen space reflections is the Pillar of Autumn logo in the floor there. You can see the hints of blue and red reflected in the ground. Jumping into the cinematic, you'll see that we now have the remastered Mark V. Now, this isn't a replacement for the new modern Chief that we have. That's still the default Master Chief you'll play as. But in the menu, you'll be able to select which style of armor you want. We're going to have a number of options that we'll reveal in a later video. Another difference in the cinematic is that we've pulled dialogue lines from the leaked Halo 1 beta build that came out in earlier July. So you'll notice that there's some different lines here than in the retail game. I do want to talk about Cortana, as we tend to get lots of complaints about her. She's never going to be looking better. Based on the way the original Cortana's facial structure and animations were, we have to match that. There's no real way for us to make a more realistic face. Even people who have ported the Halo 4 model to Halo CE have done so with really uncanny and awkward results. That said, we are looking at adding other Cortana models to the mod 2 that you can choose, like you can the Chief's armor. So you could have the classic Cortana from Halo 1, or possibly a remastered version of that, which is just texture changes with the same identical model. Another thing to notice here is the new reflections on the glass. We've created custom cube maps that reflect the environment appropriately. There's tons of graphical upgrades in this project. As the camera pans, look where that red flashing light hits the yellow paint. You can see how it diffuses and blooms as it hits that, and then changes as it hits the darker metals. If you'd like to see the fully updated cinematic, you can check out the other video on my channel, which is just this entire mission with no commentary on it. I'm going to cut it short here and just jump forward into some gameplay. So, as we come back from that cinematic, the first thing you'll notice is that we added a little piece where you see the same sort of screen effect that you have in Halo Infinite when you first put the chip in your head. You'll also notice that there's no pistol for the player now. In the early build of Halo 1 that leaked online, this is how you got the first pistol, finding a crewman holding his ground and getting shot. Funny enough, this is still sort of in the original game, but it also works as a good headshot tutorial as you have the one grunt at the end of the hallway. Now as we enter combat, keep an eye on my shield bar. What the Hdr Skull does is take your default 75 shield points and makes it 50 instead. However, it's always adding power to your shield when it's not depleted. When it's depleted, it takes the same time for your shield to recharge, but once that charge process happens, it's instant. In gameplay, this results in elite plasma rifle shots doing a lot more damage to you than the grunts. The grunts fire less frequently and do less damage, so your shield can more quickly recover, whereas the elite plasma rifle bolts do massive damage, creating a situation where only a couple shots can deplete your whole shield. It's a trade-off that changes how you have to play the game. It also means things like melee attacks are going to be more dangerous as a player. A single melee will deplete the player's shield, leaving them vulnerable until it recharges. While some of the plasma pistol shots may seem like they're way too weak, This changes on Legendary and also in encounters where you have more open space and more enemies. Let's look at the ray trace reflections over here. You can see the different colors on the menu are reflecting off the assault rifle's gun. You can see the little bits of orange and pink at the top and the blue near the bottom. Take note over here as we get near bright colors and how they reflect off the gun. While some of this was possible in the past with dynamic lights off the little computer terminal, other things would never be possible before, such as lights reflected in the ground. What's really cool here is when I pick up the Overshield. In SPV3 would give you the green glow of the Overshield on your armor, but what no other Halo game has done is allow that to reflect off your guns themselves. If you look at the stock of the SMG, you'll see the green light reflecting, and that will actually change in intensity as the shield goes over you. I tried to kill this Marine to get his assault rifle, but we all find bugs. Moving on, as I come around this corner, take a look at the blue and the red reflected on the silver floors. Now, let's go back over here into the dark. As we break into this dark corridor, we can really appreciate the new lighting effect. As we attack this elite and get ready to pop his shield, you can notice how the light is reflecting off the wall and how it diffuses based on different materials. You can also see some of the ambient occlusion in the crevices on the wall too, specifically those little squares. This is a really nice effect, and while it's easier to notice when you're in slow motion like that, it's a subtle effect that really affects the whole overall mood of the game. Now, this red light over here isn't anything special. It's a normal dynamic light that you have in the regular Halo game. What is special is here where you can really see the plasma rifle shader reflecting off the gun, especially the plasma rifle. As we move on, what's great about the screen space reflections that we're doing to post-processing is that even when you pick up a gun like the assault rifle, it instantly happens. There's no configuration on our end, it's just a new layer of graphics that overlay the game. I also want to come over here and look at another post-processing effect that we have. This one is for the double speed power-up. It kind of blurs your vision but allows you to move at double speed while everything else moves at half speed. Funny enough, I see a lot of videos where people get really confused over this. I guess people don't notice the effect, and they also don't notice the weird screen flash when they pick it up. But you can really do some kind of cool stuff here, taking down multiple enemies super quickly, even though I kind of miss every melee that I meant to do here. Most of the time I like using grenades here, but I actually have Odst Skull on, which makes it so enemies drop less grenades. As said earlier, the goal of the Skulls was to really make it so players had to approach this game differently. Some of these missions now have been out since 2016, over 4 years, so finding ways to mix it up and give people another reason to play them is a challenge. As we come around this corner, you notice something from the Halo 1 leaked beta, and that's this doorway over here that's opened up. Now, this was always here even in the retail game, and while in the beta build there's some evidence that there was even more areas over here, we thought we'd open this up and do a little area here where you can find some weapons and ammo and show evidence of a giant battle. It makes sense that they would want to close in the original game just because there was a tutorial level, but we're not treating this level like a tutorial anymore. So we introduced more things and like to do more things in it, such as the extended sections. In this hallway you can see that red reflected in the floor again along with some of the blue. This is a really nice showcase because you get a lot of the big sight lines. It's not just about showing bright colors, even things like those little white lights reflecting the floor accurately. So this area is one of my favorites in the mod, and it's kind of funny because it's literally just a box room. I've always kind of felt that later Halo games put too much emphasis on the level design, which may sound weird considering this entire mod is all about expanding the levels. But this area shows creative use of simple level geometry with simple gameplay elements. We've got the visor here, where you can really use for the first time in full-on combat. We've got these explosive barrels, camouflage elites. I really enjoyed the close quarters action here in the dark, and when you explode the barrels, it stuns the enemies and disrupts their camouflage. These little interactive gameplay techniques are things that I think are a lot of fun, and I wish more games would focus on. I don't think you necessarily need the most complex environment. Sometimes, simple is good. The sub-engine room is another good example. Now, most people don't know this, but you can actually do stealth for a fair amount of it. Right over here, if you just wait for the elite patrol, you can get the sleeping grunts. I've heard people complain that there's sleeping grunts on the ship, and yeah, grunts should not be sleeping when they're invading a ship, but you know what? It's a video game, and sometimes that matters more than the story. Now, this next section, you can't actually sneak around and get the brutes, but you can get the drop on them. Let's show the hunters over here and how this changes with the Energizer Skull. As you can see, I die super quick. This isn't due to us changing anything with the hunters, this is just the skulls at work. Since you have 50 shield points instead of 75, the fuel rod blasts are a lot more dangerous to you. And since you have the Odst Skull on, which makes you slower, like in Halo 3 ODST, it becomes much more difficult to avoid their melee attacks. However, the faster shield recharge time means that you don't necessarily have to go running into cover. Now let's jump into the final cinematic, which is relatively unchanged since the last release, although you can see the remastered Mark V armor over here. While this is the bare minimum that should be expected, we made sure to retain the backpack weapons on all the characters during the cinematics. One big change we made to the cinematic overall, though, compared to the original game, was taking out some of the intro cinematic of the next mission, Halo, and doing what we call seamless map transitions. Since we expect most people to be running on SSDs in the future, which allows faster loading than a hard drive, we were able to black out the load screens and find ways to hide the transition when that black screen pops up. This allows it for some machines to seem like the maps load instantly. We actually used this in the first cinematic mission of the game, which starts with the intro of the game and ends with Chief waking up. The map actually switches and loads a whole different one, which then you play. And then you have this cinematic. If you remember in the original game, this cinematic ends in them safely entering Halo's atmosphere. Whereas here, we take some of the dialogue from the beginning of the next mission and use that instead, and add a crash ad.
We'll be fine.
The reason for this was twofold. One, it creates a more natural transition, but it also lets you see Halo for the first time when you walk out of the life pod. As we fade to white, you hear the crash, and the screen snaps to black, as if you blacked out.
Chief,
And then slowly, your vision comes back to life, and you see the grassy fields,
Can you move?
you get control back, and you walk out of the life pod. And that's how we introduce the world of Halo to you. Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what mission you'd like to see me talk about next. Like I said earlier, I'm going to be trying to do these a lot more, so we'll see you soon. Take care, and bye.